Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. As always, we have a load to get into. We're going to be talking, of course, about BlackRock now officially filing through their iShares for a Bitcoin ETF. We're going to talk about the Celsius news that came out today in regards to Celsius announcing it will sell all altcoins from its customers starting on the 1st of July. And convert them into BTC and Ethereum. Now, this is largely why we've speculated that the altcoin market has got so hard hit, is ultimately because you'll probably have a lot of funds or institutions or whatever it may be in America that are now worried about regulatory uncertainty and have decided to avoid that by getting rid of and actually moving more towards BTC and Ethereum. Isn't it very timely of BlackRock to come out and now apply for a Bitcoin ETF? Again, this is just part of the journey, I guess, as crypto individuals. You know, this industry, if you understand where it is, it's very much in infancy and hasn't even been allowed to become an industry yet, certainly in the likes of the United States. That is still to come, but part and parcel with being able to benefit from that still to come is to be able to endure the volatility that is caused in the short term. We still absolutely assess, you guys will know this, that the bottom was in for Bitcoin. We did think the bottom was in for most altcoins in January this year. But ultimately, some altcoins have gone on and put a toe below it, and they're now kind of at January's levels. So if you look at the stock market, for example, you've got new all-time highs across the board. We've called that market perfectly. Gold, we think, is on the precipice and at new all-time highs, essentially. And ultimately, we think the dollar is set to roll. And we looked at yesterday the FOMC speech where Jerome Powell said, essentially, and this is the real spanner in the works that the markets perhaps initially didn't like, that they didn't see a rate hike appropriate for this meeting, but perhaps they saw one coming, or his words, I think, to kind of paraphrase it, were most committee members do foresee that further rate hikes will be applicable to fight inflation and get it back down to 2%. We think inflation, if we look at true inflation, it came out at 2.5%. We think the macro very much support our reasoning for getting back into the market, and that's going to continue to be the case. So we've got a lot to look at. We'll be playing a clip from, of course, Brad Sherman, the sort of, I don't know what you'd call him, the arch nemesis of the crypto space, and then also looking at Coinbase and the chief legal officer from Coinbase actually talking about, you know, the fact that they are very much now in the fight with the SEC. So yesterday we covered in a number of videos. The first one that we did, which was incorporated in our daily cryptocurrency market update, was looking at the fact that BlackRock actually are the own 6% in MicroStrategy, and they bought a lot in Q1. Now, they're not doing that for MicroStrategy, which is, for all intents and purposes, a dead company up until they bought Bitcoin and never survived from the dot-com boom. They're doing that for the exposure that it's going to bring them to the to Bitcoin, essentially. It's the only way that a fund like BlackRock can really get exposure to Bitcoin without buying it in spot. And of course, it's still even Bitcoin in a regulatory no man's land. And we'll look at a comment from Paul, who's the Coinbase chief legal officer, in just a second on all that. And actually that this could be a very good thing. I do believe that. We see upside targets for XRP, which suggests that they're likely going to win the lawsuit. And we'll see. So the SEC has rejected numerous attempts by other funds, companies to launch a Bitcoin spot ETF. BlackRock iShares files paperwork for a spot Bitcoin ETF. And I've actually looked at the paperwork. It is legit. This is a big deal. Now, yesterday, and please go and watch yesterday's videos, we did look at actually what happens with an asset when an ETF is approved. Typically, it's quite bullish because it opens this asset up to a whole broader audience in the US, institutions, so on and so forth. We looked at gold in 2004 and, of course, the S&P in 1995 when ETFs were approved for both. It's very interesting and timely, isn't it? We've always said that they have a plan for blockchain, and actually Gensler's largely working likely in the background towards fulfilling that plan. But it is extremely interesting. This was a take from Autism Capital on the whole thing in the iShares Bitcoin Trust. It's interesting that BlackRock is going for an ETF in the midst of an SEC attack. The optimistic perspective is that the SEC attack is to clear out the low-level peasant tier scammers so they can rebuild the same game with their elite tier USA boomer scammers. So I wouldn't quite put it like that myself, but I do think, actually, that this is a big flush out. It's very interesting to me as a technical analyzer that Bitcoin, we were expecting support at 25k, we were expecting resistance at 30, and 25k was always on the table. Altcoins, of course, have been shaken pretty violently, to say the least, with the SEC dramas, and actually we'll look at Celsius and their action in just a second. Interesting that the ETF news comes up right around support. The charts are your insider, guys. Get good with them, get familiar with them, and you'll do a lot better than somebody who just purely pays attention to news, which is often second-hand, third-hand, you know, and the institutions have already acted upon it months beforehand. It's where we get this whole buy the rumor, sell the news sort of thing. So it is very interesting. I do think in the same way that we are going to eventually end up with a Bitcoin spot ETF, we are going to have layer ones that end up with their own spot ETFs down the road. This is the opportunity here, guys. You get to front run an industry that's not even been recognized as an industry yet, that we know is literally changing the entire world. If you think about an industry that could do with trust, that could do with accounting, that could do with being able to structure things in a way where, if you look at what DAGs are doing in data, we know they're not blockchains, but they use cryptography. You know, you could literally apply blockchain to any industry and it will upgrade it, whether that be the payment system that it already has, the accounting system, the identity system, whatever it is, it can upgrade it. Blockchain is absolutely the future. And this ride was never going to be a particularly easy one, but one that will reward you if you stay on it long enough. I'm living proof of that, having stuck around in 2018, 2019, when nobody else really did, which is kind of reminiscent to, I remember buying Chainlink at 20 cent, and it went down to 15. And I was like, oh, you know, this is back in, I think, I can't even remember, 2018, 2019. And I remember thinking, oh, that, you know, that's a 25% drawdown on your investment portfolio, or that particular allocation that I put into Chainlink back then. And then a year, 2 years down the line, you know, we end up at $52. And that decision all of a sudden seemed what might have been turbulent at the time at being one of the best decisions that I'd made. So that opportunity is here again. We did get news from Celsius today. Celsius announced it will start to sell all altcoins from its customers starting on July the 1st and convert them into BTC and Ethereum. The total altcoin sell pressure is around 250 million. So it's not a lot of money, but it is if it gets spot sold. So if that spot hits the market, it will dump 100%. Order books will not take that amount of liquidity, I'm afraid. And you can see here you have all the assets, or a list of all the assets down here. It's corrupt that Celsius are allowed to sell their customers' funds without them even acknowledging it. Just remember, guys, there was lots of big prominent influencers out there that promoted FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, so on and so forth, that claim to be holier than thou, and call other things scams, even though these guys were perhaps some of the biggest ambassadors for these two individual complete scams that took place. I want to play you a clip now from Paul Grewald, who's Coinbase's chief legal officer, talking a bit more in detail about the case, and then we'll play a clip of Brad Sherman, and I'll love and leave you to your Fridays.
For Coinbase, and I think for the entire industry, however a court ultimately resolves these issues across a range of products and tokens, we will finally have clarity, and we will be able to order our business accordingly and appropriately. And so while we are very confident we have the better view of how to define an investment contract, and that all of the allegations in the SEC's complaint are incorrect or a misread of the securities laws, one way or the other, we're going to get clarity. And for Coinbase and for the industry, that's a win in and of itself. For Coinbase, and I think for the entire industry.
I apologize there, guys. Yeah, you know, Coinbase seem very much set on fighting this. So do Binance US, that just recently hired former SEC, or it might have been persecutor, but a high up one in regards to their legal team and their compliance team. Things very much seem to be set to be getting fought. One thing I really want to emphasize is this is really what the SEC are doing. They're seeing what they can get away with. How is it, not even looking at BlackRock's time the entrance into the ETF side of things, but how is it that essentially they've had over 4 years, however long they've been looking at now, you know, probably since 2015 to decide whether a crypto is a security or a commodity, and they still can't do it. The two agencies that are tasked with both securities and commodities still can't even decide. So what they're doing is going to the courts to essentially land grab, to use that term loosely, to be able to decide what they can and can't do. And once you get that regulation, guys, that's a big part or a big step to mass adoption in the United States. We think everything that's happening now may not be on the face of it bullish, but eventually in time will be proven to be so. Let's listen to Brad Sherman and his comments on everything going on.
Is this the end of crypto in America?
Hope so, don't think so. But
you hope so?
Yes.
Why?
Well, you know, this is an investment network, and people might say, hey, it could go up, it could go down. The question is it good for America? And the answer is no.
Is this the end of crypto in America?
I mean, this guy clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. So very bipolar space. Ultimately, guys, we still remain long and strong. You know, if you look at the stock market, this is a market that we've been absolutely spot on about. It's very ironic for me as a crypto-specific investor, although we do own some stocks, some Japanese stocks, believe it or not. This has done exactly what we set out, okay? And it feels very FTX-ish in the sense that Bitcoin didn't go up on the news of FTX, of course, but the stock market was. And you've got this kind of discorrelation. I mean, look at this, guys. You've been wrecked if you were shorting this. Microsoft at new all-time highs. How's that for your bear market, ladies and gentlemen? This is not a bear market, in my opinion. You just have Meta. Ooh, decent. You know, I've not even checked Meta. Apple, above and beyond new all-time highs. Bitcoin will bask in this sun. It's just having its own internal issues. Nice little buy here on what potentially is a major bull flag, giving you big upside targets. You could see a 3K gold. And we think the dollar is set to roll. And we could be looking at the death of the dollar, like Janet Yellen kind of hinted at. It's not going to, people say, oh, the dollar's not going to go away. Okay. It's not going to go away today, tomorrow. But 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2, 3 years down the line, let's see where the dollar is compared to now. On that note, I am going to love and leave you. If you've enjoyed this content, as always, guys, a like is appreciated. So is a comment. I look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you want to join my group, please do consider checking out the Patreon. See you in the next video, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next.